Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moton.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Thursday. Number 1, the Democrats running for president squared off in the first debate last night. They avoided any ugly attacks but clashed on health care and immigration. Round 2 is set for tonight with another 10 candidates, including frontrunners Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders.
Meanwhile, President Trump has arrived in Japan for the G-20 summit. He's expected to sit down with Vladimir Putin for the first time since the release of the Mueller report. And he'll meet with China's president, hoping to reach a deal to end the trade war.
Number 2, new legal battle to protect children at the U.S.-Mexico border.
We learned overnight that lawyers representing migrant children are now demanding access to border facilities for inspections.
Meanwhile, the Senate has approved an emergency aid bill for the border, but it's different than the House version. So now lawmakers face the difficult task of trying to reconcile those two bills.
On to number 3, a newly uncovered safety flaw on the Boeing 737 MAX jet could keep the plane grounded months longer than previously expected.
Government test pilots have found a problem with the computer system that could send the plane's nose pitching down. It was found during testing of Boeing's updated software. The jets have been grounded since March after 2 deadly crashes. And we head to Houston for number 4, new details about the 2-year-old girl hit by a foul ball during a Major League Baseball game.
Her family says she suffered a skull fracture, brain contusions, and even suffered a seizure. The family has hired a prominent local attorney. No word if they'll sue.
Experts say cases like this are hard to win because of the so-called baseball rule. Since 1913, every ticket comes with a disclaimer saying the buyer assumes all risks during the game.
And finally, number 5, the richest people in each state.
Here's the map. In Washington, it's the Bezos family, thanks to Amazon. Mark Zuckerberg, the richest man in California.
No surprise for Nebraska, Warren Buffett. And in New York, it's Michael Bloomberg. Who else is in there?
Kenneth, is that you on the great state of South Carolina?
Nope, that ain't me.
Okay.
No, that's Anita Zucker, my cousin,
All right.
at $1.8 billion.
There you go.
Who you got in Illinois, though?
If I could find it on the map, which is embarrassing,
Ken Griffin.
right?
Oh, okay,
yeah,
Ken
Uncle
Griffin.
Ken. Uncle Ken. A lot more to talk about, a lot more rich cousins to find.
Janae, I'm Anita Zucker's cousin. It's Morning America.
So, all those people with all that money.
Right.
I mean, I'm not on the list. You're not either.
I'm not.
But we want to be one day.
We'll make it there. South Carolina, I'm coming. And I'm going to give back to the Palmetto State.
The great state of South Carolina. Now let's get to that big story. The Democrats who want to be president giving us a glimpse at the issues that will dominate the 2020 campaign. 10 candidates took the stage in Miami last night arguing over climate change, the economy, and immigration, but it was health care that divided them the most.
Wow, that was a lot there. A lot happened last night. So you know what we need to do? We need to bring in Lana Zach there in Miami. She has been there all morning.
You started talking. I tried to say something. You went right over me. He said, no, Lana.
Lana, please save us right now. 10 candidates set to face off tonight, but we had the 10 last night.
Yeah, so much going on.
Break it down for us. Who really stood out there?
So much going on. You know, so the people who spoke the most, let's just start there. Cory Booker and Beto O'Rourke, by many estimations, they were the people who came in just behind Elizabeth Warren, but they didn't actually emerge as the big winners of the night necessarily. So it's not necessarily who talks the most who reaps the rewards. Elizabeth Warren, she was the person who came in as the polling frontrunner. By most estimations, she emerged unscathed. Some people even saying that she rose in their estimation. She's been talking about trying to make Medicare for all a reality in America. She said that politicians who say that it can't be done or that it will cost too much money, what they're really telling you is that they don't care enough to fight for it. Healthcare, really, that was the issue that most separated out these Democratic contenders who in so many other areas really agreed for the most part on the broad issues. Climate change is bad, immigration needs to change from what President Trump has as his current policies. But on health care, there was really that separation. Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington, tried to make his claim that he was an executive, that he had that experience. He talked very passionately about how he was the only person up on that stage who had successfully passed legislation that would safeguard a woman's right to choose, to which Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota, just jumped right in with a zinger, and she said, there's 3 women on the stage who have fought very hard for reproductive rights.
Absolutely. We saw some of that fact-checking within the candidates themselves, but we also were doing some fact-checking back on our end here, and you've got a breakdown of some of that for us.
Yeah, well, you know, sometimes there are these big claims that are made. One of the issues that really the Texas contingent sparred the most over, it's pretty nuanced how Castro came against Beto O'Rourke on Section 1325, that criminalization of migrants who cross the border without documentation. That was a fact check that I know people were looking at to see how much daylight is really between the two of them. And frankly, it's not a lot.
Yeah, you're right about that. And we've got the big night 2 coming up. Vice President and former Vice President Joe Biden, his team says he's ready. Obviously, he's got a lot of experience when it comes to debates.
Senator Bernie Sanders also there.
Yep. And so, Lana Zach, we appreciate you. And we will see you tomorrow as well. Are you there tomorrow as well, Lana? Can we?
I will be. I will be.
Okay. You know, we're working out the scheduling right here on the air. So thank you. We appreciate our friend.
And that brings us to our
audio issues. Like, all these things can be figured out on air, right?
Right, exactly. They really should. We'll see you tomorrow, Lana.
And that's our question of the day. Who stood out the most to you from last night's debate? Tell us why in the comments or tweet us at ABC News Live. Now to the new legal battle to protect children at the border.
We learned overnight that lawyers representing migrant children are now demanding access to border facilities for inspections as the battle over what to do in Washington gets even more complicated. This morning, lawyers are now asking a judge to step in, demanding immediate inspections at border facilities. It comes as we get a firsthand look inside a Texas border facility where migrant children were reportedly living in squalor. The station in Clint reportedly denied children soap and toothpaste, according to lawyers who went inside and spoke with them. ABC's Matt Gutman toured the facility where cameras were not allowed.
What we saw are kids who are basically in a holding cell type of situation. It looks like a drunk tank, concrete floors, concrete rooms with hard glass between them and this central area. But we're told that the kids can actually roam, and we did see them roaming around.
Matt says children there receive 3 meals a day, including oatmeal in the morning and a burrito for dinner.
We've also heard people complaining about kids being filthy, kids being mistreated. We didn't see any evidence of that specifically. What I mostly saw are kids who are bored out of their minds.
A doctor who treats children after they leave these facilities says some migrants have been served instant noodles 3 times per day.
We saw these people 3-4 years from now we probably have to refer them pediatric psychiatrists.
It comes as this image grips the nation. A toddler's arm resting on her father's neck, face down in the water. ABC News has learned the father tried to claim asylum and enter legally at a Texas port of entry, but he was reportedly turned away. So he then turned to the Rio Grande. The man's mother in El Salvador says all her son wanted was a good future for his family. Meanwhile, President Trump is blaming Democrats for the drownings.
I hate it, and I know it could stop immediately if the Democrats change the law. They have to change the laws. The Democrats refuse to change the loopholes. They refuse to change the asylum.
But during last night's debate, Democrats claimed the problems at the border are the president's fault.
If you go to Guantanamo Bay, there are terrorists that are held that get better health care than those kids that have tried to cross the border.
We have to get under the skin of why we have this crisis in our system, because we're not being honest about the division that's been fomented in this country.
From a lot of talk to some action on Capitol Hill, the Senate has approved an emergency aid bill for the border, but it's different than the House version. Now lawmakers face the difficult task of trying to reconcile the two bills.
Delta and JetBlue Airlines are now allowing travelers to cancel their flights to the Dominican Republic without penalties. The announcement comes after several American tourists died in the country. Dominican tourist officials are pushing back against claims that the country is unsafe. They insist the recent deaths of American tourists are unrelated.
A police officer at Atlanta's airport is being praised for helping to stop an attempted kidnapper. It was all caught on camera. A woman first tries to take a stroller with a baby, and then she tries to grab another child. Their parents managed to stop her, and as the suspect ran off, the officer tackled her. Safety experts say this could happen anywhere, and parents should trust their instincts.
Well, you know, they dodged a bullet. This could have been a really bad situation, and I give it to the parents that they did the right thing. They jumped in and were able to save their children. I think it's a lesson for them, and it's a lesson for all other parents out there that this could happen at any time. You never know.
Police say the suspect may have been under some kind of mental distress.
One of the NRA's leaders has stepped down amid accusations he was part of a failed coup in the organization. Chris Cox resigned yesterday as the NRA's chief lobbyist. He was seen as the successor to CEO Wayne LaPierre. Last week, the NRA placed Cox on administrative leave, claiming he was trying to push out LaPierre. Cox called the accusations patently false.
A former gynecologist at the University of Southern California is under arrest and charged with sexually assaulting women under his care. Prosecutors say 72-year-old Dr. George Tyndall assaulted 16 women at the school's student health center. Police say Tyndall was carrying a gun when he was arrested. He also complained of chest pains and was taken to a hospital. Tyndall has denied any wrongdoing. USC is offering to pay $215 million to settle potentially thousands of claims by women against Tyndall.
A Florida man is thankful to be alive this morning after getting himself stranded at sea during a scuba dive.
27-year-old Mike Osborne suffered an equipment malfunction and strong currents about 16 miles off the coast of Pensacola. He lost sight of his boat. A search and rescue helicopter did not see him, and it wasn't until 7 hours later, just before sunset, that he was saved by a passing dive boat. Osborne says he plans to continue diving.
And a picture that was meant to embarrass a fast food worker in Georgia has actually turned his life around instead.
A Facebook photo shows Simon Childs sleeping inside the McDonald's where he works. The woman who posted the picture wrote it was just another reason to move out of town, but it turns out Simon was homeless. He also has a newborn and his mom just died.
After his story got out, strangers started donating diapers and clothes and started a fundraising account online. And now Simon has a place of his own.
I'm not homeless, no, not now. Thanks to her. I didn't think the community would even care enough to do that, but they care.
Simon also received a new car, job offers, and a free haircut. He says he holds no ill will toward the woman who took the picture.
Coming up, President Trump heads to the G-20 summit in Japan.
We'll tell you who he'll be meeting with and what's on the agenda after this. Welcome back. President Trump has arrived in Japan this morning for the G20 summit, where everything from tariffs to Iran to Vladimir Putin will be on the agenda.
And ABC's Karen Travers is there in Osaka. Karen, good morning.
Good morning, Janae and Kenneth. The G20 summit is focused on economic issues, but for President Trump, there are several big foreign policy challenges looming large, like Iran and North Korea. He's heading to a high-stakes world leader summit, but on the way to Japan, President Trump's mind was on politics back home. On a refueling stop in Alaska, the president weighing in on the Democratic candidates debate.
What are your expectations? I think they're all going to do very poorly.
Over 2 days here in Japan, President Trump meets with 9 world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. It's their first meeting since the release of the Mueller report, which detailed how Russia interfered in the 2016 U.S. election. The president's previous sit-downs with Putin have sparked controversy for what Mr. Trump has said and for details that were kept secret. At the White House Wednesday, he was asked if he would tell the Russian president to not interfere in U.S. elections.
I'll have a very good conversation with him. What I say to him is none of your business.
Just 2 weeks ago, the president told George Stephanopoulos he'd consider taking offers of opposition research from a foreign nation.
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it.
With U.S.-China trade talks at another standstill, President Trump sits down with President Xi Jinping to try and seal a deal. But he's still threatening tariffs on an additional $300 billion of Chinese goods.
China has been paying us billions and billions of dollars. Until I got here, they never paid this country 10 cents.
On board Air Force One, the president's still fuming on Twitter that Robert Mueller will testify before Congress, reiterating what he said before leaving the White House.
It's a disgrace. No obstruction, no collusion. Now the Democrats want a do-over.
Other big meetings for President Trump on the sidelines here in Osaka include sit-downs with the leaders of India, Germany, and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. But as we've seen the president do ahead of other world leader summits, Janae and Kenneth, this week the president was complaining that allies are taking advantage of the United States.
And Karen, we know that the president has a lot lined up. He's meeting with 9 world leaders. We can hear that rain coming down behind you, and you guys have got a storm heading your way.
We do. There's a typhoon heading in this direction. It's actually going to hit south of here in Osaka, Japan, but it's the equivalent of a hurricane. So there's certainly going to be a lot of rain. It's impacting world leader arrivals. Heavy winds tomorrow, but the summit will go on.
I really hope that's not symbolic of what's to come for the G20, especially when it comes to the president hanging out with those other world leaders.
Insert your own jokes.
And I've got
insert your own jokes.
Karen, you know me. I've got plenty of them.
Typhoon that's coming this way.
All right.
Karen, our dear friend from Washington, thank you so much for joining us, and be safe out there.
Now to the latest on the rising tensions between the U.S. and Iran. Let's go way across the pond to James Longman watching some new developments from the United Arab Emirates. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Kenneth. Well, today could be the day when Iran surpasses a deadline set down in the Iran nuclear deal, which was signed under Barack Obama, of course, for the amount of low-enriched uranium it is allowed to keep. Now, that limit was set at 300 kilograms. It seems that today might be the day where they go over that. The Iranians basically said a few months ago, Donald Trump having left the deal, they said, well, if you're not going to keep to your side of the bargain, we're not going to keep to ours, and we're going to keep stockpiling this stuff. And today is the day when they go over that limit. Now, it doesn't mean that today they suddenly have the capability to build a bomb. You need about a ton, about 1,000 kilograms of this stuff in order to do that. But it does mean that Iran is just pushing the envelope that little bit more. It could also mean that they don't abide by other parts of the agreement. There is a nuclear reactor in Iran, for example, at Arak, which they promised to make modifications to. They may not do that. So just slowly but surely, they're just pushing the envelope. And it means, in another respect, that the Americans are now able to say to the Europeans who have been abiding by this deal, look, Iran is not holding up its side of the bargain. It's gone over this deadline. Now it's your turn, Europe, to also slap sanctions on Iran. So this part of the world is still waiting for Iran to react in some way. These sanctions are crippling for the Iranian economy. And so a lot of people here watching, waiting for what happens next in this escalating crisis.
And at the same time, raising those escalating tensions, raising a lot of concerns back here on our side of the world also. James, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys.
And let's check our notifications now.
Okay.
And we're really starting with something drastic than what we just talked about. Can we get a little bit more of a warning, folks? Can we, we need a little
you guys,
something.
Can we get a little more blur?
We need more blur, please.
How about that?
I would like more blur.
Yeah.
Starting with this German man here who took a little joyride on his scooter in the nude because it was a hot day.
I mean, how hot?
In Brandenburg. How hot was it?
What's the temperature that justifies this?
Apparently, this is the impact of climate change. This is what the climate change
This is where we've gotten.
This is what the folks who say, who are trying to fight climate change say, see, you get this.
Nothing
It's
but a helmet
hot in
on.
Brandenburg. This man, he wanted to take a ride on his scooter. He's got his helmet and his flip-flops.
And as sorry as
And
I feel
that's
for
it.
everyone who had to see that image, I only feel more sorry for that scooter seat.
All right. We don't feel sorry for this excited dog, though. The best thing about dogs is how excited they get when they see their owners. Look at, he just knocked him right over.
Yeah, that's
It's really
a lot
cool.
of love.
Lots of love.
Lots of love. And a basketball robot. Speaking of robots, like taking over jobs, this here is the future of the NBA. Watch out, Zion. The robot. Might give you a run for your money. It's a robot by Toyota. It's like 6 foot, a bunch of inches, and they call it a humanoid. It uses a bunch of sensors to shoot these shots, and it does it really well. But of course, it can't move, you know, like dribbling or anything like that.
Of course it can't.
No.
Yet.
Yet.
At least it has its clothes on.
Thank goodness.
And finally, this little boy rode his first roller coaster. Watch as he goes from excitement, and then you're really about to see. He's like,
yes,
I'm
he's
so excited,
ready.
yay! And then wait. This is not fun.
Ready.
This is not fun at all.
Ready.
He hates it. He hates it.
Yeah.
He is not happy. The exact face I was making when we showed that naked scooter ride.
A roller coaster of emotions.
Yes, definitely.
Coming up, about 180 people will visit emergency rooms due to fireworks-related injuries this time of year.
We'll show you how to avoid being one of them and have a fun 4th of July. After this. Here's what to watch out for today. The first Democratic presidential debate continues in Miami as 10 more candidates face off for a second night. Former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, and more take the stage tonight.
The Supreme Court is expected to announce rulings at 10 a.m. Eastern, possibly including opinions on gerrymandering and a proposed citizenship question added to the 2020 census. And former Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton attend a celebration for the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. They'll discuss their leadership and efforts in the areas of veterans issues and healthcare. You can watch that right here on ABC News Live.
Plus, don't forget to tune into the debrief for an update on all our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics.
We are just a week away from Independence Day, and the government is sounding its annual warning about amateur fireworks.
And they're showing some colossal firework fails. Will Gans has more on how to stay safe.
That's right, you guys. This time of year, 180 people will visit emergency rooms every day due to fireworks-related incidents, but it doesn't need to be that way. Here's how to stay safe this 4th of July.
The 4th of July means fireworks. This morning, the Consumer Product Safety Commission reminding partygoers that those fireworks aren't always pretty. Last year, fireworks responsible for 5 deaths and causing more than 9,000 injuries. The majority of those injuries occurring in the 30 days around Independence Day. The most common mistakes? Aiming fireworks at a friend. Assuming a longer fuse gives you more time to ditch the firework. In fact, injuries to the hand and fingers make up more than a quarter of all firework-related injuries, and that's more than any other body part. And lastly, leave the professional-grade fireworks to the professionals. An illegal M1000 turning this watermelon to mush. While the demonstration may look like nothing more than a mannequin massacre for fun, it's important to remember that even seemingly harmless fireworks can cause serious damage. Those little sparklers that seem kid-friendly?
Let's be clear, sparklers can burn up to 2,000 degrees in heat intensity.
Which is as hot as a blowtorch, not great for loose clothing. So here's some final fireworks safety tips to take with you into the holiday week ahead. Make sure your fireworks are legal. Don't use professional fireworks. Keep water in a bucket or hose nearby. If a firework doesn't detonate the first time around, don't try to relight it. And never let kids handle or light fireworks without supervision.
One final tip, even if everything goes according to plan with your fireworks and sparklers, douse them with water before you throw them away to prevent trash fires. Great little tip there. Stay safe, folks, when it comes to these fireworks.
Absolutely.
Don't do what
safe.
I did as a kid in the 90s who didn't tell their parents that they were doing all types of things with fireworks.
I asked you if your mama knew.
And I said it was the 90s.
No excuse. Be safe, be smart. My goodness.
Have a good one.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.